Hi guys, quick note before we get rolling with this show. After we were finished recording this, Ramon and I talked and decided that the material that we'll be putting out here is too important to put behind any walls. So we're going to make this all password free and not in the members section, so to say, and behind the subscription. So this is free to all, and I hope everybody enjoys and learns something from this, because this is one of those types of things that can be a paradigm changer. Uh, okay, guys, on with the show.
Oh my, there is a monkey on my back. And it's like, oh my God, this one's got to be like 148,474. We're really climbing in the monkeys that have climbed on board here. So, oh, that's 75. I just felt 75 pop in there. Monkeys are just growing and growing and growing, and with the kind of stuff that Ramon and I are doing here and so many others. And you know, Ramon, something I have noticed here, and I've been noticing this for a while, that the talk show scene, the alternative media scene, has been growing fast.
It's
I mean,
huge.
People are getting their voices out there, and this, I just like, this is freaking awesome. I mean, more and more people are deciding, hey, it's time for me to get my voice out there. I have something to say, and they're doing it. So all you guys that are listening that are doing your own show, kudos to you. Congratulations.
Yes.
Way to go. Keep it up. And all those who are thinking about doing a show, want to get your voice out there. Guys, it's not that hard to do. Just do it. I mean,
Yeah, if me and
you
Tom
have
did
something
it,
to say. You have experiences to share. You have questions to ask. Isn't it so awesome to be able to ask questions directly of the sources of information? It is absolutely one of the biggest blessings that this show carries with it, is the ability to get a direct answer from the authors, from the presenters, from those who have done the hard work, done the research, and are sharing their information. That is by far one of the highest and most treasured aspects of doing this show. So
yes. Agreed.
So anyways, I did pop on a few new links in the news section here last week, Ramon. I don't know if you've noticed them or not.
Yeah, I saw some of them.
Yeah, there's on the political end of thing, there's what's his name, Arapo or whatever his name is, the guy in, I think it's Arizona, that whole court deal that's been going over the Obama legitimacy for his presidency. Now there's another one where this lady is a private investigator, and she has done some tremendous work in the past, and she's been doing this for quite a while. And she's done some tremendous work on researching Obama's Social Security number. And it turns out that it is impossible for him to have been issued the Social Security number that he uses. So that's another one, guys. I mean, stuff like this is out there. It's not very easy to find sometimes, unless you're linked in with some of these alternative media guys that are keeping their radar out and looking. Stuff like this, the more people that know about it, the more are going to be, aware, and the possibility of something happening of it increases. Yeah, there's been some amazing, absolutely some amazing stuff flying around in the skies in the last few months too. The UFO sightings have gone off the chart this year. And there's some very, very credible ones out there, multiple witness. So yeah, keep your feelers out, guys. Pay attention, because it's happening.
Well, to get to our side of things, let's see. Me, to begin, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Tom's YouTube, and also Twitter. Just scroll down and you'll find us, and you can join our page. I'm always posting up videos of other shows and just anything interesting, and of course our own shows. Quite amazing. Let's see. Also, yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Oh, I think you were going there. Ramon added another little section on the main page of Tom and Ramon's events and appearances. Ramon's been stepping out there and talking with people about his book, so he's got another interview coming up with, who is that, Truth Theorem Radio?
Yeah, and that'll be August 1st at 9. It starts at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, but I go on at 9:30. And also, you will be somewhere too. So for those of you in Washington,
a place in Shelton called Cove Crystal, and I'm going to be there for a weekend long. It's being called the Crystal DNA Activation and Healing Festival. I'm going to be reading tarot during the festival, and I'm also going to make a couple of presentations, make a presentation each day while I'm there, and just gonna kind of be life as Tom sees it type thing. It's interesting. I finally buckled down and tried to put a linear progression of a linear presentation together so that I kind of know exactly what I'm going to be talking about. So a little bit more work than I thought it was going to be to actually put things together like that, but it's fun.
Also, if any of you guys are thinking of going to the Pythagoras conference, that would be October 10th to the 14th, and if you buy any of your tickets through us, we get a small percentage of that, and that will really help us out. So we appreciate kill two birds with one stone, or catch two birds with one stone.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's see. Last but not least, Tom is reading tarot now, so you can just contact him and he'll read your tarot. So you're doing that more often now, right, Tom?
Oh yeah, I decided we kind of hid that back in the back pages of the website for a while, and I kind of took a little bit of a break from it, but I've decided that definitely there's people who have questions out there, and one of the gifts that I've been given is the ability to be able to read the tarot, and that aspect of who and what I am absolutely amazes me every time I do it. So anyways, yes, I am doing that, and there's links there on the main page that'll take you to a little form to fill out, and just drop it to me, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah. So, we have, well, before Tom introduces the guests, I just want to say this. So, you know how sometimes I say that this is a classroom and you're here to learn. So, today you will learn something very important, and I implore you to take a notebook out, because it's so much information, and it's probably more complicated than rocket science, but our guest explains it very, very good in layman's terms.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, I don't know, we're not sure how many part series, but we're going to do it, twice a month?
We'll try to do it bi-monthly at least, and we haven't really set up a rigid date, so we are, but we're just going to go with the flow with this, and
yeah. I think by the time you're done with we're listening to all the shows, you will have close enough to a BA in the subject.
It's something like that. So this is going to be called, this series, initially we're going to start calling it The Nature and Character of Money. And we have with us for this Spencer Barclay. And Spencer's had several years of independently studying law, contract, linguistics, definitions, orthography, commercial redemption, administrative process, mortgages, foreclosures, and many other threads in this immense rabbit hole of info regarding sovereignty. He's come to his own conclusions about the nature of conflict, how to resolve it, and achieve remedy on being sovereign on every level, not just our actions, but our perceptions as well. Spencer, I've had the opportunity and the pleasure of sitting down with Spencer on several occasions and listening to him speak about the different ins and outs of our currency system on this planet, and this guy is just a fountain of information. And during these next few shows here, we are going to see if we can't raise the awareness with at least all of our listeners and see if we can't get this spread far and wide. Spencer, welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio.
Hey, thanks, guys.
So, man, this is going to be quite a chunk to bite off here, and for a lot of people, I think it's going to be a little startling what we find out through this. Now, I think we wanted to. Yeah, I think we kind of wanted to start at ground zero and really understand how this system came around, what its basic fundamental nature is. So can we kind of talk about the origins of the system that we're working under?
Yeah, and there's probably a time where we go back far enough. You can reel back in terms of history on money. To a point that maybe delves a little deeper than what we need to do to understand the nature and character of it. And so I haven't spent any time understanding money much more past the history of gold and silver. And before that, there's a lot of phrases and little anecdotes where people say that clamshells were used as money and various trading stones were used as money, and those are, you can kind of get sidetracked a little bit on some of those histories.
Right.
And so most of the lesson to learn about money is if you understand how the gold and silver system worked, you then have a model to compare what we got going on now. And so most people are familiar with the system we have now, cash and checks and credit cards. But to have a system to compare it to is gold and silver. And anything more than that, we don't need to delve that deeply into. So you can go back a little too far.
Right. I can see it can just add a little bit more information in there that's really not useful.
Yeah. And then, once you have a handle on it at some point and you want to go start learning that stuff, it's those are sort of the side channels that can get chased out by people that are interested in it, I guess. But the gold and silver system, the gold and silver standard is that's kind of the benchmark to understand what's going on with money. And this story is maybe it's long enough or it's just complicated enough to where it doesn't seem interesting enough at first to really scratch the surface on it to see if there's something there interesting to know. It's just big enough to prevent, I would say, an interest in it maybe.
Right.
But it's a small enough concept that it's not so daunting that you can't figure it out. So there's not that much to it if there's enough interest there to kind of scratch the surface and apply a little effort into looking into it.
So from my understanding in history, gold and silver prior to it becoming a currency was for building little statues and jewelry and those sorts of things. At what stage did it, and what do you understand at what stage that it ended up being the form of currency that we're using?
Yeah, I didn't look much farther past, say, the medieval times, and so before that, there's certainly an era of, the Phoenicians and the Egyptians getting out around the Mediterranean, and I didn't even look into it, say, that far back, because my focus was to understand what we had going on now. And
right.
so,
What? Yeah, I'm talking about it is pertaining to the system that we have now.
Yeah, I don't know where we transitioned, where that transition was. That's one of the side channels that I haven't looked too far into as far as where it's gold and silver's interest really got momentum.
Let me ask you this: with from the little that I understand, the very little I understand, I get the idea that a lot of the modern banking system starts with the Templars during the Crusades.
Yeah, it could be. Well, various groups have kind of figured out the system and taken it to new levels of organization. So once you understand the fundamentals, it's like understanding the fundamentals of chess. No one really owns it per se, but they could dominate the world market for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
So then take us back to the beginning of the story where you want to pick up out here.
Yeah. So the commercial process has been, let's say right now, I'm going to start with a point in time now, and then quickly work my way back to that system, and then I'll work forward a little bit more slowly.
Okay.
And so here's what it is that really piqued my interest and set me into motion was I was studying the current system, and one of the things that I really noticed was the current debt collectors. If you apply that, there's only 10 maxims of commerce. There's only 10 rules to this game, and I'll go over that in a little bit. But one of them was that risk is the measure of credibility. And so when I would apply that to current collection systems for some friends and things that I was working on, some of this commercial conflict, with the banks and creditors and some car leases and things like that. One of the things that I would ask these collection agents was, show me that you have any risk or that you experienced a loss. And so that's one of the hurdles or the barriers that the collection agents couldn't come past, and yet that's a maxim of commerce. They have to be able to show that in order to move forward and have standing to have a claim. And so as I really started to get my mind around that, I started to then wonder, well, I know that here's a collection agent or an attorney or a bank that's saying, hey, you owe me some money. And then I would pose the question, show me that you were put at risk or that you experienced a loss, and then we'll move forward. They can't do that. And so that made me wonder what's going on at the very root of the system. How is it possible that there's no risk and no loss to these guys? And yet real property, real tangible goods are getting exchanged out into the system.
Before we continue with the word property, can you define that a little more for us?
Yeah, property is something that you have an exclusive right to, something that you have a right to the exclusion of everybody else. And that's a good question, because property is a concept that absolutely must be understood in order to understand money. And so property can be as abstract as intellectual property, trademarks and copyrights, that kind of thing.
What about labor?
Yeah, yep. And then once you start to kind of see that, hey, it's obvious that property doesn't have to be tangible. And once you start to explore that a little bit, it's readily available and obvious that labor is property. Labor's property, and that let's not expand on that too much, because it's such a key and pivotal point later in working our way through the history here.
Okay.
That
okay.
It might sidetrack us a little too much, because it's not a broad topic, but it's so important. It's critical to understand that, and it's critical to money. So as I started to dig around here a little bit and find out, well, how is it that these guys don't have risk and that they did not experience a loss, I quit studying the current system because I kept chasing my tail. I couldn't get an answer. And so I started exploring and researching the law merchants and what was going on in the gold and silver system. And not deliberately to figure out what was going on. I just started digging deeper into history. And I started studying bills of exchange and negotiable instruments. And so a lot of these law merchants, I would say all of them, there's no way they would have had any long-term success unless they understood money and contracts all at the same time. And so they had to be essentially as good as a lawyer, and that's exactly what these guys were called. Law merchant law. That's what they were doing. Is law and being a merchant was combined into one profession. And so later on, we'll see that the two get split up, and they take two different paths to kind of keep things compartmentalized. And one of those paths is the accounting. That's the CPAs. That's the money side of it. And the other side are the attorneys, the attorney at law. And these guys are the ones that understand contracts, and very rarely do those two professions blend together. But we'll see that they're one and the same if you go back far enough at the gold level. So the law merchants, let's just say if we pick a time in the medieval times, 13, 14, 1500, something like that, these guys were trading in big bulk quantities, let's say around the Mediterranean and up into Italy and certainly all around the coast of Europe. But if you were just to look into a scenario of, let's say, an Italian law merchant, he's going to be buying and selling in as big a bulk and as big a quantity as he can get his hands on as fast as possible. And so for him to pay off his debt every single time a bill came due, he would have to transition, if he were to transition gold and to ship it every time to pay that bill, there's too much exposure in terms of that gold being in transport. It's too inconvenient, and there's too much downtime with the gold being in transit. It can't be used for commerce.
Right.
Yeah, so what these guys started to do was they would just see that they would have a debtor and a creditor at an exceptional distance away, but yet they may be close to each other. And so what they do is they just write a letter to their debtor and instruct them to pay their creditor. And so let's say, if you, Tom, and Ramon and I were all doing business, and Tom and Ramon are almost neighbors, and I owe Tom $100 and Ramon owes me $200, I might write a bill of exchange to Ramon and say, hey, pay $100 to Tom, because he's right next to you, and so he can just buzz over and without getting too deep too quickly into contracts yet, he would go over and give you, Tom, the $100 in gold coin. And then you guys would do a receipt, and Ramon would send that to me to show, hey, look, you're taken care of over there. And then now I have that receipt to show Tom. And that's an overly simplified scenario, but it's what we need to understand. That's what these guys were doing. The buying and selling of commodities was only a minor portion of their skill. A major portion of their skill was, how do we get the currency to move efficiently? And that's how they did it. And so what they started to see was that the gold itself or the silver, it was not as important that it was tangible, that it was intrinsic, but that it had property. And so to give you an example, if one of these guys was getting paid 10% of a man's labor from 20 different guys, he would essentially have the income of two men. And that is also back then the equivalent give or take, of having two slaves. It's having two people just there to do the work, do whatever work it is that you want. Because you can just convert that gold into hiring somebody. And so basically gold is like a battery that stores property. And property can be labor, and that's as important as anything. That's what we put out more than anything out into the system. And so as I walk through this a little bit, I guess I want to stress that just because I walk you through it and I explain it this fast, to really understand it, it takes time to think about some of those considerations and to see where labor is property, and it just gets stored in gold. And so that's just in this time frame. I'm not trying to blend this into our current system yet. I'm talking strictly of the gold and silver system. And so if you jump too far ahead to what's going on now, you're skipping way too far ahead and you're jumping to conclusions. We don't have enough information yet out on the table to compare the two systems.
Right.
So that's what I was studying mostly, was bills of exchange. And then I'd start to see that what they were exchanging was gold, and that was the property, all in one step. And then I would kind of compare it to, okay, we got bills of exchange and commercial paper and securities and non-negotiable instruments, and man, this is complicated. What's going on? And I sort of stopped that line of thinking, and I just thought, well, let's learn one pure system before I go into trying to tangle all this mess back up. So I also learned a lot about the history of banks themselves, and that's an entirely separate line to study. It is the history of banks and banking, and there's a couple of very good documentaries on that, and one is called The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Oh, yes, that's a good one.
By G. Edward Griffin, and it's a book as well. And there's a better one, in my opinion, and it's called The Money Masters. And that's by William Still, or Stills. I'm not sure if it's Stills or Still. And he goes farther back into banking, and he also gets into some of the nature and character of money a little bit. And he talks about how tally sticks used to be used as a form of currency for several hundred years instead of gold.
Right.
And
what's tally sticks?
Oh,
do you know, Tom?
Yeah, go ahead though. You probably have a better definition than I do.
Yeah, maybe. A tally stick worked like this. They just take a stick of wood. So picture a broom handle, and between the debtor and the creditor, they would carve in notches. And depending on the size of the notch, it would reflect and represent a certain value, and smaller notches represented less value. And there was a single stick, and once the debtor and the creditor agreed as to how many notches of what kind should be carved into the stick, they split it in half. So the creditor had one, and the debtor had the other, and he didn't have to worry about the creditor then later on carving more notches into the stick, see? Because he's got the test on it. He later, when he went to redeem and pay off the debt, even if it was labor, maybe he's going to say, hey, look, I'll accept this debt, and we can carve this many notches into the stick, and I'll work it off of your place. I'll go to your farm, and I'll work that much labor in order to resolve the debt. What he'd do is, when he thought the debt was paid, he'd go take the stick up to the creditor, and if they both agreed, what would happen is, and this is going to be an important lesson for understanding mortgages later, if it was agreed between the debtor and the creditor that if everything was paid, the debtor then got the creditor's side of the stick. That's exactly the same thing as show me the note. The promissory notes.
Mm-hmm.
And here's why. Is there's a maxim of law that says a deed found with the debtor is presumed to be paid. Because why else would the creditor give it up? And on the flip side, if the creditor still has the promissory note, if he still has a claim to get paid, he needs to show that he's got the original, and that's why it's in his possession, is because it's not paid off yet. and the debtor had darn well better get that promissory note. You better get that tally stick back, or someone out there still has the claim. And so the original creditor on that tally stick, maybe he sold the stick to somebody else. Hey, look, I got this debt. I'll sell it to you. You know, the guy owes me $100, but I want it right now. I'll sell it to you for 80. Same thing with a promissory note. When that thing's out there bouncing around, whoever holds that note has a claim, and they can collect. And so if the debtor pays off the mortgage and then doesn't demand the promissory note, somebody else, he can keep being collected on forever, over and over. And so, just as an example, Tom, if I owe you $100, but I paid Ramon, you're going to say, I don't care. You owe me. I don't care who else you've been given cash to. Your debt's with me. And so it doesn't matter. See, now if we go back to that scenario where my original debt for the tally stick was Tom, if you sold that thing to Ramon, but I paid Tom back, Ramon later is going to say, hey, I don't care who you paid. I hold the debt. You owe me. So if you're foolish enough to go out and start handing out money, that's your own problem. I'm here to collect.
Right.
So a little bit of a sidetrack, and it kind of fit right there next to that tally stick. But let's stick with that's just an accounting method. That tally stick, it wasn't the property itself. That was just to ensure that somebody gets paid. And so what really is going on with that gold and silver, let's switch back over to that, is that not that it doesn't matter that it's tangible or that it's intrinsic, other than it is property. It's that it can be property. It's because someone else will always value that gold at, I don't know what is it per ounce. Let's just say it's $1,500 an ounce for gold. That $1,500 an ounce is always going to be represented in any shape, even if it's configured into jewelry. So what matters is property, and property is quite a little topic. So let's skip ahead and see how there's a little system that kind of reminds me of that magician's trick where he pulls the tablecloth out from under the table setting, and the table setting's still there. So in 1913 and a little bit before, the United States government struck up a deal with the Federal Reserve Bank, and it was a private entity. And that's the story where G. Edward Griffin and William Stills go into detail as far as how that happened. And prior to 1913, when the United States as a government wanted money, it needed income for a project, it had to go to the public and ask permission. And they couldn't fake whether or not they got the approval or not, because the way they got permission was that they sold bonds. And if the people identified with the cause, if they believed that was something that needed to happen, they'd go buy those bonds, and that's the only way, and the direct way, how the government got the money.
And then the bonds become a ticket for the property, right?
Yeah. That shows, hey, look at these things are. There was a tax, that was a pre-authorization for a short-term and temporary tax. But let's not get into it. That was the system that they had to go by. And so, if that interests you, there's a whole other line of research that's way too much for this conversation. I just want to make a distinction as to how things used to work. And so after 1913, what happened was the United States struck up a deal with a private bank, which became their private central bank. And now anytime they wanted money, all they had to do was borrow it. And what they did was they bypassed the approval system of the people. And through tacit acquiescence, in other words, failure to object means that you agree. If I tell everybody in a party, hey, unless anybody says otherwise, I'm going to play some Tom Petty for the rest of the party. If nobody says anything, I go and play that music for the party. no one can come up to me later and say, hey, I didn't give you permission to do that. Right? It's a backwards line of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So now when the United States wants money, what they did is they just went to the bank and borrowed it. And the people were on the hook for it. And that was an entire system that needed to get set up simultaneously. And so it wasn't just the Federal Reserve. And so there's a bit to know there. And simultaneously and concurrently, there was another system that went into place, which was the IRS. And so the IRS was the ways and means to pay back the loan that the federal government was getting. And so what was going on there was, as the United States would borrow a certain amount of money, the surety and the mechanism and the administration was all set up and in place, and that was the IRS was collecting a certain amount of income tax. And so they kind of kept their finger on the pulse of what was going on, in Washington, D.C. on both sides of the fence, and they knew they couldn't borrow any more than they'd be able to collect in income tax. But at the same time, they'd be able to project how that income tax system would work, and they'd be able to project an income off of it. And it was quite sophisticated, and therein lies another path and another entire line of research. But that's what they do. And so as they would be able to anticipate how much they'd be able to get paid, they would just borrow that much money. And so that was the system put in place in 1913. And so from 1913 to 1933, at the end of every year, or however often the Federal Reserve was on a payment plan, the United States paid back in gold coin. It was quite a little gig, but here's the problem: is the United States the Federal Reserve was only loaning out banknotes, paper, right? It was probably tough bond paper made with cotton or hemp, so these things could get passed around just like we use right now. But that is what the Federal Reserve was loaning out, was paper that almost has no value, and they were being repaid in gold coin. So from 1913 to 1933, that 20-year span is what was needed to deplete the United States inventory of gold. And so at that point, gold got so low, there was a banking holiday, and that was June 5th of 1933. The United States declared bankruptcy on the Senate floor with House Joint Resolution 192. And part of some of the researchers that were looking into this, well, for a long time, 60s and 70s, it was a real small group, but up into the 90s, when it became a lot more prevalent, people would know this. It would spook them so bad. Sometimes people would almost there'd be little twinges of panic you'd see with people, and therein lies a little lesson of, hey, relax, hold on, let's get the whole story here before we start jumping to conclusions and deciding that we can take a definite position, because even from right now, I haven't laid out enough info to really see how the system's working yet.
Real quick, during that period, was in that time frame, that 20-year period, was when the government made owning gold, personal gold, illegal, right? Right.
Well, it wasn't during that period. It was in 1933, June 5th. That's when.
So the bankruptcy is what prompted that.
Right.
Makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah, and they posted that where it was illegal for persons to own gold. That was only illegal for United States citizens. And to understand that even back then, the United States was a corporation, and it was the democracy that that was functioning and kind of squatting on the Republic. And so there's a little bit of knowledge there that you have to kind of understand the difference between those two. And so to be any time after 1867, that's when the United States ceased being the United States of America and just became United States Inc. With a capital U, not a lowercase u. And that's when it became the proper name of a corporation. And so United States citizens were always franchises. And so no one was ever a United States citizen before 1867. They were a citizen of the state they were in. And the United States was just it performed governmental functions like the post office, right? No one ever would say, "Hey, I'm a citizen of the United States Post Office." It would be ridiculous. And so United States citizens, it wasn't even conceivable in the mid 1800s. People didn't know, wouldn't have even known what you were talking about if you could time travel back then. They'd think you were crazy. So what the United States citizen was just a corporate function. It was just a little franchise that you were of the United States. And so to take a quick little side note over to that was a lot of the forms that would be offered by the United States government, especially for during the Depression years when people would be seeking assistance and benefits and privileges from the United States on those forms, what would be asked of the people is they would be told, "Hey, you have to be a citizen of the United States." That's what they would say in order to qualify for this benefit or privilege. And then on the form, they would ask you, "Are you a United States citizen?" And there would be a yes and a no box to check. And then down at the bottom, it says, "Under penalty of perjury, I declare that it's true." And so that's the little scam. That's the little secret contract that they'd have out. People didn't know the difference not to check that box. They didn't know what was going on. And then you move forward to today. It's so common. It's just ingrained in our mind so much by exposure, by television and all the media and schools, that what it means to be a United States citizen has been completely obliterated. At least the understanding of it. But the meaning of it hasn't changed at all. But anyway, so I bring that up because it was only illegal for United States citizens to hold gold. It wasn't. It was perfectly fine for people to own gold. You know,
so citizen of the state of Washington would have been fine.
Right. United States citizens, it's not.
But no one knew the difference back then.
Yeah, or the people that didn't know would have just been signing up for those benefits and privileges. And look at the time era when that really hit. Back in the Depression in the 20s, people were so desperate that first their mind wasn't on those little details of a contract. It was, who cares? Fill this paper out and let's get into those soup kitchens, or whatever the benefit was. It was, who cares? Yeah, and so that was one of the mechanisms that desensitized people to question what a United States citizen was. And then with some other major distractions through World War II, it was. There wasn't any time to sit around the kitchen table and think about this stuff. But under the executive order, the president made it illegal for United States citizens to own gold, and that was issued April 5th, 1933. And I bet I could, and that was posted in all the post offices. And so here's another little, and the terminology in there was, it was illegal for persons to own gold, and they didn't know the difference. But there's a massive difference between a person and people. And I'll show you another place where you'll see a distinction readily, and yet no one makes the connection. Is that you'll see in the Constitution, it says the right of people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's 100% true. Because whenever you see a statute or a code or something where guns are prohibited, the word that's used is persons. No person shall. And so that's the 14th Amendment crap that the NRA pursues is they're barking up the person tree. And if you know you're one of the people, you're a people, none of that stuff applies to you. Anyway, that's a very similar distinction as far as owning gold or owning guns. It's kind of hung up on the same play on words.
Okay.
Anyway,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, back to the gold thing. And so when gold was made illegal for United States citizens to have May 1st, 1933. And that was a little bit of a hiccup, but not too bad, right? Because that was the Depression, and there was too many other economic issues going on back then. But what drained the system was the United States paid back in gold, but they only received banknotes. They only received the paper. And so what the United States then had as surety was the income tax. And that was something that they would have in place, and they absolutely had a revenue that was quantifiable. It was auditable. They could assess how that was going to go in the next year, and they could really project, let's say, 10 years out. And so what they did is they ratcheted up income tax over time, first and foremost, in order to set their sights on how much they could borrow. And so here's what's really going on right there. That is a point in time where the magnifying glass ought to be pulled out, figuratively speaking, because that's where our remedy is. And that system, when you look at it on the surface, it seems as insidious as hell. It seems evil. You hear a lot of people that are yelling and screaming and jumping up and down and making a lot of noise about we need to go back to gold. And I would say, hold on a second, and let's analyze our system a little bit deeper here and see what's going on. So some of the administration that's going on with the IRS and the income tax, all of that is based on birth certificates and Social Security numbers. And that birth certificate goes to the United States Treasury. And so what is Treasury doing with something that should be over in vital statistics, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, yep. So a birth certificate is a financial instrument. It's a commercial instrument. A birth certificate for all the people in any of the countries that are in the United Nations. That's one of the qualifying features of a UN member for a country is that they have to be bankrupt.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So there are very, very small niche countries that have currency that can't be imported or exported. It's illegal to export their currency, and it's not traded on the open market. And I don't know if you guys have ever even stumbled across that, but I can't pull a country out of memory. You got one?
Yeah, the country that they just took down.
Libya.
Yes, thank you.
Oh my God! I had no idea. Okay,
Yeah.
So you go back to every single war that we've had, and you work your way backwards, you will see that the banking system completely collapsed, and in went a private central bank that's beholden to the Bank of England.
Yeah, the first thing the rebels did was set up a bank system.
Yeah, they weren't rebels then. They were paid off by the bigger system at large. You go back and look at every single, whether it's a minor skirmish or not. You know, Iraq used to have its own currency backed by gold, and it was just a bank. It wasn't it wasn't under the direct thumb of the government. And you just keep working your way backwards. Vietnam, Japan before that, right? World War II. All of those little countries started to have. You look at the banking system immediately before the war, and immediately after. I forget the name of the Reformation that was going on in World War II. The something program, or it was a guy's name. I don't remember now.
Oh, I forgot. I did hear about it.
Yeah. Yep. They were cleaning
the
house.
same thing. Yeah, they did the same thing in Italy, Germany, and Japan.
You
correct?
got it. All those countries were they were just cleaning house on the bank. So you look back at every single, and I didn't know this about, what is it, Syria? Ramon?
Syria, the one they're going into now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that they're supporting the rebels or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, well, so
Libya is the one that had the currency that they just took down, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, that's another little pattern you'll see if you go back and look back through the United States skirmishes. You go immediately before and immediately after, and you'll see there's two different banking systems. And so that's one of the other speculations is, what are we doing in Iraq? And you got these guys that are chasing down, and I'm not saying they're wrong, about some of the archaeological digs that are going on there, and looking into some deeper historical issues. And I'm not saying that was or was not a major premise as far as a reason, but I do know that there's a banking pattern every single time, especially in Iraq. I mean, those guys were a major player in the world's commerce for oil, but the bank was not playing. They weren't playing the game.
Yeah, didn't Iraq state that they were no longer going to trade oil for U.S. dollars?
Yeah.
And Libya said the same thing too.
Libya said the same thing, right?
If I'm not mistaken, Libya was trying to set up in the, what's it called, the AU, African Union.
They were trying to set up a new standard, a new gold standard, new world currency for oil. Instead of being the petrodollar, it was supposed to be a gold-based currency. What was it? The dinar or whatever it was.
Yeah, I believe it was the dinar that they were going to use.
Gold's easy to manipulate at the world level, at the level that the big boys play, right? The Bank of London, that kind of thing. So check it out. The system that was put in place was fairly complex, and these guys had all kinds of time to figuratively set up a board game, is what they were doing. Because the IRS was the surety. That was the guarantee on paying back the Federal Reserve. And so when you hear that the United States dollar is backed by the full faith and credit of the American people, that's what they're telling you. And they don't mean that there's some sort of vague, generally unstated faith by the culture and the popular community at large. It's done individually. Just like in The Matrix, when it showed that each little baby was a battery for the system, and that baby had a direct cord, a direct cable coming out of it. It was producing its own energy, feeding it directly into the system. In other words, it wasn't putting energy out into a field that was contributed to by everybody sort of anonymously. That wasn't what was going on. Each individual baby had its own cable to it. Well, that's exactly what's going on here. And so what's going on is that people are putting out their labor into the system. And so the United States dollar is absolutely backed by property. It is backed by property. United States currency is backed, but it's not intrinsic, and so people can't see it, and it's hidden too deeply in a compartmentalized system. But if we keep digging a little bit deeper, you can see where that property is. And so the IRS also deals directly with your Social Security number. right? That's the little barcode. That is the serial number for the birth certificate, effectively. Now, I know there's other numbers on the birth certificate. It's not what I'm getting at. That is the serial number to the account. And so when you go out to get a line of credit, let's say you want to get a loan for $100,000, the first thing the system needs is your Social Security number. And so what they do with that Social Security number is not to establish, they don't give you the credit. The first thing they need to look into is what? What do they need to look into, guys?
Your credit score.
Your credit score. Your credit score. The credit score is a unit of measure, and it's measuring property. And that property is labor. The credit score is a unit of measure for labor. Now, I know there's other issues like what's your debt-to-income ratio, what kind of assets do you have, and what I'm saying is at first the system is kind of like a Model T Ford back in the 30s. You know, those cars did not have air conditioning, right? They didn't have a sophisticated motor that didn't backfire all the time. And so at this point in the story, when we look into what the credit score was, it was kind of figuratively like a Model T. And eventually we're going to work our way up to a super high-tech, high-performance car like a McLaren or something exotic. That was the unit of measure that they were trying to calculate back then, was how much labor is getting put into the system.
Right.
Yeah.
So our the property is based on our credit score. They've figured out our credit score. Each point of us credit score is worth X dollars within the market.
Yeah, that's skipping ahead. If we were just to look at a credit score and that system back in the 30s, we can start to add sophistication to it. And then if we do that and never take our eyes off the prize, which is property, and I don't care if it's gold before 1933 or labor after, you'll see that property never left the system. Mm-hmm. And by never, I mean, okay, except for 3 days during the banking holiday. But the banks were closed, so it's almost a moot point.
Yeah, so you know, this whole, all these concepts that we're putting out here really kind of take a whole different, it's, you know, I think we mentioned yesterday when we were chatting a bit about how the parallels, I found that there were some striking parallels between understanding the system, the currency system, the money system that we're under, and spiritual growth. Once you get outside the box and really start digging deeply into who and what we are, it takes quite a while to really wrap your head around all these new concepts that you're learning as you're growing. And this is the same thing with what we're talking about here tonight. I mean, all these different concepts, you have to retrain your thought patterns and your perceptions of what these things actually mean, for it to really sink in and to you know, to be something that you can do something with, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're gonna end this hour soon, but just there's something that Spencer tied in for me that I was just amazed with. For example, here in Japan, many people work overtime, and a lot of them don't get paid for it. So what I was putting two and two together is like, and maybe I'm jumping way ahead, but that the company can then tell, I don't know if it would be the Treasury Department or the government, we have this X amount of labor and with no cost to it. So, for example, if I do 20 hours overtime and Tom does 20 hours overtime, that's an extra person of labor for free.
Yeah.
So yep. Is that
so?
correct?
That's why the Japanese right. That's why the Japanese economy has always been fairly strong.
Right. What that does is that feeds directly into the strength of their dollar or their yen. Is it a yen?
Yen. Yeah.
Yeah. So gross domestic product and how much ultimately the country exports, it's not that you wouldn't see that reflected in individual overtime and all that kind of thing. It's just when the country exports a certain amount of goods and it only needed to pay a certain amount to get it, it has an effect on the strength of that dollar, on the strength of that currency, I should say.
Right.
It makes a lot of sense.
So okay, well, I suppose this is a good a point as any to break off here for a few minutes and come back in the member section for the second segment of this first installment of the nature and character of money with Spencer. And man, we've got so much ground to cover here. I don't know how many segments we're going to end up with here, but there's going to be quite a few, guys. And I'm sure we're going to have to repeat quite a few things just to be able to help people let this sink in. Help me let this sink in and work on changing my own perception and the way I see these things. So Spencer, anything you want to mention? How can people get a hold of you?
How about you post my email of saltydriftwood@gmail.com on your website?
It's already there, my man. So, okay, guys. Well, pop on over to the member section. I want to thank all those members, by the way, and it's very affordable for you guys to do so, and then you have access to all the second hour content for the last, geez, Ramon, we're coming up on 2 years here pretty soon. So,
what? Where?
Yeah, we are. Can you believe it? This is what, episode 94 now?
No, this is
93.
episode 92.
92.
Yeah.
So
8 more shows.
There's my number. So, okay, guys. Well, we'll see you in the member section. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
The love you deny. Yes. The love you deny is the pain you carry. Who's that?
And we'll see you guys in a few minutes.